Thanks for downloading the McKay interview. My guest today is the Director General of Swiss International Airlines in Western Switzerland. That's the French-speaking part. We talk about what the end of the pandemic looks like for his airline as the future grows slowly rosier, how he plans and adapts his business to the changing regulatory circumstances in such unpredictable times, and the demands on Swiss of net zero sustainability and decarbonisation targets. I hope you enjoy the podcast. Hello everyone. It was in the spring of 2015 that I first sat where I am today, in these offices which had a glorious view of the Jura, but now look out onto the brand new intercontinental terminal of Geneva Airport. I was then, as I am now, with the person who leads Swiss International Airlines in the Suisse Romande. That's the French-speaking part of Switzerland. My guest today is the relatively new Director General. He was only appointed last summer, Romain, and I'm delighted to be sitting in front of him. Hello, Romain. Welcome to the McKay interview, and thanks for inviting me here today.
Hi, Michael. Pleasure to have you here.
It's good to meet you. Romain, how the world has changed in such a short time. There are few business sectors that have been so dramatically and negatively affected by the COVID-19 pandemic of 2020 as the airline travel industry. And the pandemic is still with us, even though somewhat diminished, thankfully. And to underline that fact, I should mention that I returned to this same office and sat at this same table in November 2020 to hear from your predecessor, Lorenzo Stoll, of the very difficult story of Swiss and the airline industry at the height, or should I say the nadir of the lockdown, the confinement. Romain, your predecessor used the word at that time, dramatic. When I asked him 14 months ago to describe the situation of Swiss and more broadly the international airline industry at that time, how would you describe the industry situation and your company's situation today?
I think today the situation is still dramatic. We're seeing a bit of light at the end of the tunnel. We finished the Q3 with a small profit, which tells us that our passenger or guests are still looking to travel very much. There is this envy to move, to go see friends, family, to also go do business. We've seen that, but then the reality strikes again, and Q4 has been really tough. We're going to finish the year with substantial losses, and this is our new reality, the uncertainty. We try to plan as best as possible, and we've learned on the way. So I think things has changed as well.
So there's a mixed messages, but generally speaking, just like Lorenzo, even though he was in a much deeper hole at the time, generally optimistic. Yeah.
I think we ought to be optimistic.
Yeah.
Exactly, because now we have new ways of working. We're flexible in the way we plan our network much more than before. We are reactive. We try to follow the trends as much as possible with government regulations to help our passenger. And I think the proof of last summer with somewhat good results is a sign that steadily a recovery can happen. Of course, it's not as fast as we expected.
Okay, Romain, it's good you mentioned government regulation because we're going to come on to talk about that, obviously, as we go through our conversation. But before we get into the heart of our conversation, please tell me and our listeners a little bit about yourself. What were you doing before you were appointed to this important position?
Sure. So I'm 37 years old. I'm originally from Geneva, so that has been Geneva, somewhat of a rare fact once in a while. So it's that's also one thing that was appealing to me to the job. No, so before I've been more or less 5 years within the Lufthansa Group. Actually, I was based in Zurich. I was watching over, namely, the technology programs for the group, meaning really for Swiss, Lufthansa, and Austrian Airlines. Developing what is known at IATA as the NDC program. That's the New Distribution Technology.
New Distribution Technology.
Exactly. Mm-hmm. And this is a program that ran for 5 years for the group, was doing project management and basically commercial development for Swiss as well. When the opportunity or the call to somewhat go home came around about the Geneva mission.
Okay, that's interesting. Now, Romain, in November 2020, there did not appear to be an end in sight. I'm speaking of the pandemic before the vaccinations appeared mercifully on the horizon. Now, things have changed beyond expectation since then. At least it has changed in the countries of the rich north. They've grasped very quickly supplies of vaccinations and implemented for their populations, understandably, national programs of inoculation. Nevertheless, I ask you, as a European and intercontinental long-haul airline, what does the end, I use that in inverted commas, look like for you? How do you make your plans for today, for tomorrow, and for the year or years ahead? And are you on track to realize those plans?
Sure. I think we've learned one thing about this crisis, and as you said, the dramatic situation is planning ahead is extremely difficult. There's a lot of variable ahead of us to plan a network. Where do we fly? How many times do we fly? This has been changed dramatically, and our team of experts, they're really working now on a weekly basis, making adjustments to our network, looking at demand. But what we've seen in general is that the trend since 2020, our passengers are booking on average more or less 2 weeks before departure. And that has been a huge change for us. We used to be able to predict and to be able to see passenger loads for the summer. 6 months, you would be able to get some understanding of where you could go.
As big a difference as that?
Yeah, of course. You have different phases of planning. You know, right now, people in January, February would start booking in for the summer. But we've seen that has changed, and that flexibility and agility has been really highlighted in our team members. And we were glad also that the crisis mode helped us to really push us to the limits in flexibility and being able to respond to the market. Whether we need to increase the network, we need to go down, that's the new way of working.
But just, I mean, obviously it's a complicated issue, and me and the people listening, we're not experts, but just give us a little insight into the implications of passengers, your customers, shortening their decision-making so much.
Mm-hmm. I think the first thing that you need to look up is the uncertainty. What we've seen, the things that move the most is government regulation. From one day to another, and even within the European Union, you've seen regulation changing or sometimes even misfits. You remember in last December, European Union, you needed an anti-gene test, while in Switzerland you needed PCR. And this has been then readjusted in December. But this is things that are complex for passenger to understand. What do I need to do to fly, to travel, whether it's by air or by another means of transport? And that's the reason why our passengers are waiting for really the last minute to make a decision. Where do I go? And really checking and even double or triple checking the information. We have passenger checking online, of course, whether it's on Google or on Swiss.com, but they're also going to our call center and asking, what should I do if I'm going to London, if I'm going to Porto? And this very often changes. And that is also the new reality for passengers, to look into the details of their traveling plan.
So you've anticipated my next question, which is about regulation, and we're going to talk more about this anyway. But how do you run a business like this if the goalposts keep moving on the playing field?
Yeah, it's a very good question, Michael. I think our answer up to now has been gaining in flexibility. We're really looking to do on a weekly basis changes. We try to plan as much as possible as Swiss, but also as Lufthansa Group, because the importance is not only to readjust our flight plans, but is also to give options to our passengers. Whether you are leaving from Geneva or if there's alternatives that we need to take via Zurich or via our other hubs within the Lufthansa Group.
I see. I really wonder how you run an organization. I mean, there must be a cost implication too, compared with the old days when you had a much longer lead time. So the cost of doing business is higher. I wouldn't say that the cost of doing business is higher. I mean, the staff is there, the way we work is somewhat similar. We have applied different method of working to gain in flexibility, and we've been looking a lot into optimization. How do we optimize routes? How do we optimize our marketing campaigns? And it's really taking a fresh look at every single things we do. And do we really need it, bottom line? So you've really basically dismantled the business model and put it back together again with this new circumstances very much at the top of your mind.
Correct. I think it's not top of my mind, but it's really top of the mind of our employees. We have great experts that are have really worked really hard for us in finding what I call the fine details and making improvements along the way.
That's interesting. My guest today is Romain, the Director General of Swiss International Airlines in the French-speaking part of Switzerland. Romain, has the support package, the credit contract with the banks, which came up in the last time I was here, to which your predecessor referred, been sufficient for the pandemic period? In November 2020, I'd just remind you of what I was told then, you were draining cash at the rate of 1 million Swiss francs per day, so I was told. I mean, without obviously breaking any secrets, tell us a little bit more about the money, to put it very bluntly. How's it going?
Yeah, so I think one of the positive news, at least from last year, number one, we were able to start paying back some of that loan that we got from the government. So that was, I think, a pretty important thing to do for us, to start repaying as soon as we can, because that's a priority, right? Number two, it has been as well to not use the loan as much as we would. So really withholding ourselves to take that cash and not use it. So that's been the second point. And the third point, of course, which was I think the hardest for last year, is the restructuring of the company, going from, I would call it a mid-sized company, a mid-sized airline as Swiss, to restructure ourselves to a smaller airlines and to have lesser costs. Yeah, whether it's from people living in retirement, and we had unfortunately as well had to let go people last June. So all those measures to keep us afloat and also to project ourselves as a smaller and more fitter company for the future.
I see. Looking at the particular problems with which the pandemic has confronted you, what do your bosses in Zurich and Frankfurt expect of you? And outline for me and our listeners which issues are under your control as a manager, senior manager, and which issues are out of your control. Because again, I guess you're paid to balance that and actually to achieve results.
Correct. So there's a few things. My number one mission is really to stabilize the operation in Geneva. That's the number one.
And what does that really mean, stabilize?
And stabilize operation means that we go back to a stable capacity for a passenger. That means a certain percentage of flights that we offer from our portfolio. So typically, we ran up to 60 to 70% last year in capacity compared to 2019. That is how much we are basically flying, right? And we really want to stabilize that. That's really the basic, yeah? Having the network available for passenger. Number two is regain profitability. That's really bottom line important for us because we cannot fly at a loss. We need to be able to be profitable to repay the loan. That's really the goal. In terms of independence and flexibility, there's two things that I think are quite important. Swiss, in my opinion, and I've been within Lufthansa Group, Swiss is pretty independent from Lufthansa Group. We've taken our own decision last year to take a direction that seems stable and future-oriented for Swiss, with some hard measures, but also with some good measures that puts us on the right track with the right market size that has been now adapted due to COVID. And from my side in Geneva, we've been in the past and we are even reinforced within Lufthansa Group as the lab of experimentation for Lufthansa Group and for Swiss. That has been the case before with my predecessor, and we continue to fuel this DNA that we have, and through small, medium projects that are then launched within Swiss or within Lufthansa.
And that's exciting, or you don't feel a bit like a guinea pig in a laboratory, or that's?
No, I like it because it means a couple of things. I mean, first we can come up with, whether it's small ideas or big ideas, doesn't matter. The team of experts brings some great stuff here, so I have a really full trust in them, and that to me is the entry door to the bigger hubs. You know, let's try something here in Geneva. We've done a lot of stuff on sustainability last year. We're looking into intermodality, and we have the flexibility because we know each other. We are relatively small base compared to Zurich and Frankfurt, so we are flexible, we're fast, we execute quite well, and that is really the blueprint that we can create, like we've done before with Swiss Saveur. The Swiss Saveur program on board, the whole food program, has been launched in Geneva before the whole Lufthansa Group. That shows that we can launch things. And this we have really, we have the operation for us and the trust of Zurich to do it.
And for those of people listening who don't live in Switzerland, they may not have flown Swiss, what is the food program?
So the food program it's our Swiss Saveur program. that is basically our food offering on board. That is done in collaboration with the famous brand Sprungli. So we have a different kind of offering, whether it's sandwiches, salads, and we have also the famous burgers that goes quite quick for
and
sale.
And the chocolates, probably.
The chocolate, we always have it. That's always
I love the chocolates.
it's a great thing for a passenger indeed. So that's just a boost of the morale. And this is something that has been really a program that has been developed by our experts here, and that has shined and worked quite well. And it was launched in Zurich and in Frankfurt and so on.
And the feedback from your customers?
The feedback,
passengers,
the feedback is quite good.
Good.
I mean, we have improved, in my opinion. This is on the quality, stability of the food, and this is something that is, to me, quite a nice offering to have on board.
Okay, yeah. Now you're an airline. You're in the aviation business. It used to be very romantic and jet set. You're not just an aviator, but you're in the technology and engineering business. But you're also in people. It features very much in advertising and your promotion. How have you kept your staff, your people, your teams motivated during the past very difficult couple of years?
I think there's really a common trust in each other, that we are first we're working for each other. I think that's really something that I've seen as soon as I arrived in May in Geneva, met the team. Some of the people I knew already, but there's this spirit that and I think that's very much from the very beginning when the base reopened, that the guys, they want to move forward.
I was going to say that's not new. I mean, that was there before.
It's
surely.
not new. It's really when the base reopened, there is this spirit that we can go through anything. And I think there is this understanding and motivation with each other that we're going to pull through this crisis together. We're going to help each other. We're going to do the maximum possible. That's my mission also on small projects, big projects, to be committed to the people here and to be committed also to what we do on the operation side. And this love of the brand and the Swissness that we find it a lot. It's been very emotional last year. You know, when people left, we lost people in the restructuring. But we see the love and the drive of the people for the brand, and that's really what sets apart. And I think that's the motivation we find in each other.
And does this mean that you can actually ask more of people than you probably wouldn't expect in normal times, without exploiting them, obviously?
Yeah, I think so. I think it's what we see in each other, right? I've seen it on board. I mean, our cabin crew members, our cockpit members, they are doing a fantastic job. You can ask any passenger on how is the service, how is it to talk to them in the last few weeks. Despite the crisis, the service level is extremely high. And we've seen that, and that's what we want to offer to our passengers, and we will continue to do that.
Okay, it's interesting the way you put it. Romain, explain what Swiss is doing to meet the demands of net zero, that wonderful phrase that crops up so often, and the new green goals, the new green agenda. I have in mind the buzzword sustainability. Romain, what does that word really mean to you in the airline business? And decarbonisation, again, please explain to me. I'm a non-engineer, so put it in simple English for me. What is currently going on in the field of cleaner fuels, more efficient engines, and the development of hydrogen as a meaningful fuel source?
Mm-hmm. So I think the first thing, and Michael, I'm also not an engineer, so for me it's easy to go
company.
Straight to the point, and good company on this topic. No, I think in regards to this, I think it's important to know that Swiss hasn't waited, I would call the famous word of sustainability, or you said like the buzzword sustainability, to start on our decarbonization program. We have one of the youngest fleets in Europe at Swiss. We were lucky and fortunate to have some of the newest aircrafts in Geneva from the very beginning, and that we were very proud of, to operate what is the renewal of the fleet with less fuel consumption and of course less noise. If you take in comparison the last few years, when passenger number went up pre-crisis up to 107% on top, so growth, we are growing 30% in fuel consumption. So we are optimizing on the way together with our partners, whether it's Boeing or Airbus, to really optimize the consumption of gas. Yeah. The second part is looking into future investments, like we're doing with SAF, so the sustainable fuel. We were able last year to do the first flights out of Switzerland with sustainable fuel. That is a fuel that is basically reducing our footprint more or less by 80% less CO2 produced. And that is a major step for us. So you really have the renewal of the fleet that is going to come over time with new technologies from our providers. You have, of course, the improvement with the consumption of SAF. And we have also other programs to compensate what you fly as a passenger.
I didn't quite follow the last bit about improvement in the consumption of staff. Just explain that to me again.
No, you mean as a passenger. So as a passenger, you have option to basically compensate your flight by CO2 purchase. So what you can do...
I didn't understand what you meant.
It's our compensate program. So you are able to purchase back basically what CO2 you consume. And this money goes into new programs for decarbonization, whether it's with us or whether it's with third-party providers. And the most important thing that you can do on Swiss.com currently is you can also finance sustainable fuel. And that is obviously the direction we want to take in the future.
Okay, that's interesting. I didn't quite understand what you're saying, but now I understand it. I've got a bit more of a sensitive question. Can you fly an international long-haul network successfully, I mean profitably, with the new demands placed on you by regulators, pressed as they seem to be by a vociferous portion of the public opinion who are against you? I mean, how do you manage that?
Yeah, I think you can. Again, we have to run our course of our decarbonization. So the net zero is extremely serious at Swiss. Yeah, we have the ambition to be at minus 50% in 2030 and at zero at 2050. So we take the topic very seriously. And I think this is a commitment that we make to also the regulators. And it's a call for us that we want to be an actor. We are an actor, a very important one for the Swiss economy, whether it's for businesses or for passenger. I mean, you've seen it in Geneva. It is the hub of international organization.
Absolutely.
It's extremely connected.
No question.
And that has a value. And I think this is where we need to be. We need to take a strong stand, and we need to work with regulators to improve it. I think flying is not going away. There's not at the moment yet a faster way to travel, but we're on a good track to achieve our targets.
And if you could just for a minute or so lift your eyes up from the immediate and pressing issues on your desk, let me ask you what you see in the future, not just for Swiss, this airline, but also for the airline industry.
I think there's a lot of changes ahead of us. I think Swiss is extremely well positioned being the airline of Switzerland, so in a market that is very central within Europe. We're a flexible company, a resilient company. We have really teams of experts. I think if I'm looking forward, we will make changes. Intermodality, we were speaking a minute ago. How do you combine modern transport together, whether it's train and plane, for example? We have connections already today from Basel to Zurich, from Geneva to Zurich, where you can use the flight, but you can also use the train as an option. And that is, I think, for us, the role of being a transporter and a connector to Switzerland extremely relevant, and we will continue to do that.
That's a very interesting way to put it. Supplementary and final question. What is the future for a carrier like Swiss, especially flying in and out of a relatively small but very busy and very international airport, as you said, like this one in Geneva, and serving as it does the wider regions of parts of northern Italy, France, across the border? I mean, look into your crystal ball and tell me what you see in terms of the context in which you're operating out of this city.
Yeah, it's always a very, Geneva, and I'm from Geneva, so I always think it's a very interesting city. The way it's placed, of course, the location, because you have the people from Geneva, you have the international people in Geneva that, of course, have a different type of destination they go to. You have the French border, you have Italy to some extent is not far away, and of course you have the whole Suisse romande that is there, and it's a huge catchment area, and there's different demands. So I think for us we always look at it as number one, we want to offer a great portfolio of destination for a passenger from Geneva. We need to have some destination where our international passenger can connect as well, whether it's in Geneva or in Zurich. And of course, we have to meet the demand of our partners locally. If you take a look at this winter, despite the Omicron variant, what we do is a collaboration with the regions, whether it's Valais, whether it's Vaud or Geneva. with those cantons, we're also working on what is the need of those cantons in terms of tourists, in terms of passenger and rhythm of flying. So it's true collaboration. And I think what we really believe in Geneva, despite that, yes, we are running a business, but we are very much part of the ecosystem as a social entity. And we feel that when we work with our partners, and we want to be that for the Western Switzerland.
And when you talk to these people in the Valais, the Valais, and the other cantons, and even across the border, if you talk to them, are there any things that they say to you that surprise you, that you say, you sort of scratch your head and think, oh, God, I didn't think of that. That's an interesting point.
I think what we're looking at is how do we facilitate. I have the example with Valais, for example. A couple weeks ago, we were meeting up, and we know we want to improve mobility. And mobility is key for us. We've introduced last year, and right about in October, a new service bag where our passenger from home, you can book your bag, someone will come pick it up, and you get it back at arrival. And that's for us.
Both directions.
So as of December, in both directions.
Really?
So
Okay.
you can arrive in Geneva and someone can also bring you the bag home. And that's really quite a nice service that is mobility oriented. And what we were discussing with Valais and some other region is how do we facilitate that, for example, the ski of our passenger can easily go through Valais without you having to carrying it and doing too much.
That's not just business class people. This is even people traveling at the back of the airplane.
Exactly.
Really?
That's for anyone. The service is live, and we've seen some early success. Now we have a bit less passenger. I mean, the crisis is upon us again now, but we've seen some traction in service, and we know that mobility is a key aspect. And I think that's the collaboration we're looking to do with our partners, with the different cantons in Western Switzerland.
Fascinating, fascinating. Romain, many thanks for answering my questions so frankly and so openly. It's absolutely fascinating listening to your story. We wish you and your colleagues all success in this new year of 2022. My guest today has been the Director General of Swiss International Airlines in the French-speaking part of Switzerland, Romain Vetter. Thanks again, Romain.
Michael, thank you. All the best to you.
Thank you. Thank you for listening. Please share the show with those around you, and if you have any questions or feedback, write to me at contact@mackays.ch. I promise that I will reply to you.